The day I got that letter from Jason Miller was the day my whole world cracked open, not because of what he asked, but because of what it revealed. I was in the middle of discussing reassignment quotas with my husband, General Robert Carter, when I opened it. He had just managed to secure an extra city return spot for our daughter Emily, something nearly impossible in the current political climate, and we were debating the timing. Jason's letter seemed simple at first, a few casual greetings and a polite tone, but the last lines hit me like a grenade. Needed me, the director of the Army hospital, to come down to Willow Creek to perform a reconstructive procedure. He didn't say on whom at first. Then came the kicker. He insisted I come alone and keep it quiet. My mind instantly went into panic mode. What did he mean by reconstructive? Did something happen between him and Emily? We'd raised Jason since he was young, taken him in after his mother, our former live-in housekeeper, passed away. Emily liked him, and Robert and I thought, well, maybe it wouldn't be so bad to arrange their future together. But now this? If I wasn't the one receiving that letter, I swear, I would have taken a fire poker to his skull for even implying something had happened to my daughter. I canceled every meeting in my schedule, packed up my uniform and a medical kit, and boarded a train that took me across 300 miles. After an 8-hour ride and 2 more hours bumping through dirt roads on a dusty bus, I finally arrived in Willow Creek. Jason was already at the edge of the village when I stepped off, waving with a smile on his face like nothing was wrong. "Mom," he shouted. I hated when he called me that it wasn't my son, and he sure as hell wasn't acting like family. But I swallowed it. Maybe he just panicked. Maybe he needed help. Then I saw her. A young woman in gold jewelry and a dress I recognized immediately. It was one I'd sent to Emily months ago. And the bracelet on her wrist? My blood went cold. It was Emily's. 100 grams of pure gold, engraved with her name and joy and peace, a gift from her grandmother when she was born. That bracelet never left her wrist, not once in 20 years. So, why was it on this girl's arm? "Jason," I asked, trying to keep calm. "Who's this?" "Oh, this is Vanessa Blake," he said, grinning like a lovesick fool. "She's brilliant. Could have gone to Yale or Stanford if her family had the money. Really amazing girl." Vanessa gave me a sugary smile and brushed her hair behind her ear. That flash of gold nearly blinded me. My heart started pounding. "Why does she have Emily's bracelet?" I asked, grabbing Vanessa's arm without permission. Jason just laughed. "Come on, Mom. Don't be so stingy. Emily let her borrow it. Same with the clothes. I figured since Emily's working in the fields every day, she doesn't need nice things, right? Better that Vanessa uses them. Emily's fine with it." My vision blurred with rage. Before I could even speak, he kept going. "Oh, and about that surgery, I need you to do it on Vanessa. You know how men are, we have urges. I want her to be able to marry someone clean when she goes back to the city. She's got a future. A real one. Not like Emily, who flirts with random guys in the village. Don't worry, I'll still take care of Emily. After all, I made a promise. I'll marry her eventually. But first, help me fix Vanessa up and cover the cost. $500 should do it. And maybe help her find a guy in the military, someone high-ranking. That's all I ask." I stood there, trying to process what he'd just said. My daughter, Emily, was supposedly running around with strange men? Jason was saying these things like they were facts, like she was worthless. Like Vanessa was gold, and Emily was trash. I asked him again, point blank, what happened to Emily. He shrugged. "She's not the same anymore. She doesn't listen, she's moody, and let's be honest, not exactly pure anymore. Even Vanessa saw a guy leaving her room. These kinds of girls used to be drowned in pig cages back in the day, but I'm being generous because of our engagement. Let her stay here, toughen up. Give Vanessa the return quota, she's worth it." I nearly blacked out from how hard I was clenching my jaw. Vanessa beamed beside him, holding his arm like they were king and queen of the countryside. "Jason, you're so good to me," she purred. "You'd give me your spot back to the city? You'd wait 2 years for me." "Of course," he said, brushing her hair back. 2 years is nothing. Emily can come back later. We'll marry eventually." I laughed. Actually laughed. That ugly, bitter kind of laugh that rises up when you're so furious your body doesn't know what to do. So this was his plan? Use my daughter. rob her of everything, and hand it all over to his mistress like she was some hand-me-down doll? I didn't even argue. I walked past them, ignoring his calls, heading straight toward the youth camp. I needed to see Emily, to hear from her own mouth what the hell had happened here. Emily was always sensitive, a little pampered, sure, but she was kind, intelligent, gentle. She wasn't some manipulative schemer. I flagged down a young man passing by and asked for her location. His face twisted in disgust the moment I said her name. "You mean that slut?" he sneered. "Ugh, what bad luck. You must be her maid's mom or something." "Maid? Slut?" I grabbed his collar. "Say that again." "Everyone knows," he snapped. "She sleeps around. I don't care if her mom's some fancy nurse or whatever. She's at the far end of the youth camp, probably busy right now with one of her visitors." My head exploded with fury. I bolted toward the direction he pointed, sprinting like a soldier back on the front line. The hut I found her in was smaller than the firewood shed. The door barely hung on its hinges. And from inside, I heard voices. Laughter. Something that made my blood freeze. "Don't act all innocent, Emily. Vanessa told us everything. Your mom was just a housemaid. Who knows what kind of person she really is? And you? You brought men back here like some back alley hooker." Then came a slap. Then sobs. And that was it. I grabbed a broken branch, burst through the door, and slammed it onto the back of the man in the room. He was old me age at least, and hovering over my daughter, like some disgusting predator. "Who the hell are you?" he shouted, holding his head. "You ruined my fun." Emily looked up, shaking. "Mom? Mom, is that you?" He sneered. "Oh, so you're the maid? You've aged well. Wanna join me next time?" I lost it. I beat him with everything I had. I didn't stop until he ran. Then I turned to my daughter, and my heart cracked. She was skin and bones. Her hands were frostbitten, her hair brittle and yellowed. She looked nothing like the vibrant girl I'd sent here with big dreams. She told me everything in a hoarse whisper. How Jason turned on her. How Vanessa spread rumors. How no one believed her. How she hadn't eaten a proper meal in days. "Mom, what did I do wrong?" she asked, voice trembling. And that was the moment I swore no more. Jason Miller wanted to play games with my daughter's life? Vanessa wanted to wear Emily's gold and steal her future? I was going to burn this entire rotten village to the ground before I let them take another thing from her. And I hadn't even begun yet. I thought I had prepared myself for anything, but nothing could have braced me for the disgust that dripped from every mouth in Willow Creek whenever they mentioned my daughter. The second I stepped outside with Emily leaning against me, gaunt and trembling, the villagers didn't even try to hide their contempt. One teenage boy muttered "slut" under his breath like it was her legal name. An old woman selling sweet potatoes crossed herself like Emily's shadow might infect her stall. All of it, every whisper, every side-eye, every cruel smirk was because of a lie that Jason and Vanessa spread. And they wore it like perfume, basking in the twisted glory of public opinion. I should have known when Jason wrote that letter. I should have known he didn't want to save Emily. He wanted to bury her. But not today. Not with me here. I took Emily straight to her quarters, the so-called room she'd been assigned. If you could even call it that. It was worse than a storage shed. Holes in the ceiling, dirt on the walls, not a single blanket on the bed. And still, somehow, it wasn't the condition of the room that shattered me. It was the sound she made when I tried to tuck her hair behind her ear, a tiny flinch, like a wounded animal expecting to be struck. "Emily," I said gently, "who did this to you?" She tried to speak, but her voice cracked like dry glass. "Vanessa," she whispered. "She told everyone I was sleeping around." Jason believed her. Or maybe he just didn't care. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab every single villager and force them to see my daughter, to see what their cowardice and gossip had done to her. But I didn't. Not yet. I had to know the whole story. "Start from the beginning," I said, sitting beside her. "Don't leave anything out." And she didn't. She told me how, the moment they arrived, Jason changed. At first, he was cold. Then, he got cruel. He started spending more time with Vanessa. Vanessa would flaunt the food I sent for Emily, the clothes I packaged so carefully, the letters I wrote with such love. And when Emily asked for her things back, Vanessa told her she was selfish and Jason agreed. Then came the rumors. Jason claimed he saw a man leave Emily's room. Vanessa backed him up. And in a village this small, that was all it took. They stopped giving me food, Emily said quietly. They cut my work shifts. They spit at me in the fields. My nails dug into my palms. And, Jason? I asked. He told me I should be grateful, she whispered, that he hadn't left me completely yet. I couldn't take it anymore. I kissed her forehead and told her to stay inside. I marched right to the village council house, dragging every ounce of military authority I had behind me. The so-called sheriff and overfed, middle-aged man with smoke-stained teeth looked up lazily as I stepped in. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he drawled. "I'm looking for Jason Miller," I said, my tone colder than steel. "And Vanessa Blake." His brow arched. "Something wrong with your daughter again?" The way he said it condescending, almost amused, sent fury straight through my veins. "You mean the general's daughter?" I said sweetly. "Because yes, something is very wrong." His face twitched. Just a flicker. But it was enough. He tried to recover with a laugh. "Oh, come on. That little girl? She ain't no general's kid. She's the maid's daughter. Everyone knows that." That was the moment I knew the full scope of what Jason had done. He hadn't just slandered Emily, I'd rewritten her history, painted me as a servant, recast himself as the heir to the Carter name. I could have spit in his face right then and there. But instead I smiled. I leaned in close to that tobacco-scented liar and said, "You'll regret every word you just said." He leaned back and shrugged. "Look, Jason's got connections. Real ones. Said his daddy's a colonel or something. We don't want to make enemies here." "His daddy," I repeated. "Interesting. Because I'm married to General Robert Carter, and we only have one child. Her name is Emily." The color drained from his face like water down a sink. Before he could respond, I turned and walked out. I needed to confront the man at the center of all this. Jason. I found him not far from the village square, holding Vanessa's hand like they were some kind of fairy tale couple. She wore Emily's dress, Emily's earrings, even Emily's smile, or at least what she thought it looked like. When he saw me, he had the gall to grin. "Mom," he said, like nothing had happened. I slapped him before the word even left his mouth fully. Hard. Loud. The kind of slap that makes the trees go silent. He staggered back, his jaw clenched. "What the hell? You're not my son," I said. "You never were." "Come on," he hissed. "You're gonna act like this in public?" Vanessa stepped forward, arms crossed. "Auntie, you really shouldn't be so biased. Emily's not exactly innocent." I laughed. Loud. Unapologetic. "Biased? You think I'm biased toward my daughter over the boy I took in out of pity?" I turned back to Jason. "You want to break the engagement? Fine. It's broken. Emily deserves better than a parasite who used her name to feed himself." "I never said I wanted to break it," he said quickly. "I mean, I care about her. I just Vanessa, and I have something real too." "Oh, so you want both," I said, my voice razor sharp. "You want Emily's name, her family, her money. And Vanessa, for fun on the side." "Don't twist it," he muttered. "I'm not twisting anything. I'm cutting it off." I grabbed Emily's hand and pulled her forward. "Jason Miller, from this moment on, you are no longer welcome in our family. You'll get nothing from the Carters, no position, no quota, no favor. Consider yourself erased." I didn't wait for him to respond. I marched straight to the village captain's house, dragging Emily with me. The council needed to hear the truth, and they were going to hear it now. But as soon as I arrived, the disgusting old man who had tried to assault my daughter burst through the door, pointing at me. "That's her," he shouted. "That's the nanny woman who attacked me." I didn't flinch. "And I do it again," I said. "You touched my daughter." "Your daughter?" he laughed. "She's a tramp. Everyone says so." And then he reached for me. Again. But this time, Emily lunged forward. "Get away from my mother," she shouted. He shoved her, and she hit the ground hard. That was it. That was the moment my rage became volcanic. "Sheriff," I snapped. "You let this happen?" But the sheriff just shrugged. "Look, lady, Jason's the leader's kid. You're just his maid. I don't answer to you." "Then who do you answer to?" came a voice behind me. Everyone turned. And there, standing like a storm in uniform, was my husband, General Robert Carter, flanked by 2 soldiers. Because last I checked, he continued, stepping forward, this maid is my wife. And that tramp you all mocked is my daughter. You could hear the collective gasp across the room. And Jason? Jason turned pale. Ghostly. Because he knew. It was over. For a long second, no one moved. The room felt frozen, like the air itself was too stunned to circulate. Robert stood there in full uniform, medals gleaming, authority dripping from every button on his chest, and all the smug, lazy indifference that had defined the sheriff and his crew dissolved into silent dread. You, the village captain finally stammered, his voice cracking as he straightened his posture with a nervous twitch. General Carter, sir, we didn't know? Robert's tone was cold enough to cut steel. Didn't know that my wife, Claire Carter, was standing right in front of you while you let some drunken predator assault her daughter? Didn't know that my daughter Emily was being slandered and starved in a filthy shed while you all called her names and gave her belongings to another girl, like she was a ghost you could loot? He stepped forward, and the captain nearly tripped trying to step back. Didn't know my family was being treated like garbage because some lying little punk decided to cosplay as my son? I watched as Jason's eyes darted between us, and the exit like a trapped rat realizing the maze was on fire. Vanessa, who had been practically glued to his side, was shrinking away now, her mascara smudging as the full weight of her situation began to sink in. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Robert was speaking for both of us, and honestly for Emily too. Who told you he was my son? He snapped, eyes locked on the sheriff. Who gave you the authority to treat my daughter like a whore and this fraud like royalty? The sheriff opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Robert didn't wait. He waved his hand, and our military guard stepped forward, grabbing Jason by both arms before he could bolt. Wait, Uncle Robert, sir, it was just a misunderstanding, I thought, Jason stuttered, his usual cockiness melting into pitiful desperation. Robert raised an eyebrow. You thought what? That faking a military background, manipulating government quotas, and emotionally abusing your own fiancé was going to win you a promotion. He turned to the captain. You'll be held accountable for harboring an imposter and enabling harassment. As of this moment, Jason Miller is stripped of all privileges. He is not, and never was, affiliated with the Carter family. The silence that followed was thick and electric, like the air before a lightning strike. And then, like a dam breaking, the villagers started murmuring. Some cursed. Some backed away. Some looked like they were about to cry from sheer panic. And then Vanessa, sweet little snake that she was, had the audacity to point at me and squeak, "But I thought you were his mother, you let him call you Mom." I stepped forward slowly, holding Emily's hand, and gave her a smile so cold it could frost glass. "Sweetheart," I said, voice as sugary as her lies, "my last name is Carter. My husband's is Carter. My daughter's is Carter. Jason? His name is Miller. He's the son of our former housekeeper. We raised him out of kindness, not blood. But kindness doesn't make someone family, loyalty does. And betrayal breaks it." Her mouth hung open, but no words came. I turned to the villagers, letting them get a good, long look at the reality they'd spent the last year trying to pretend didn't exist. "You all believed a liar over a general's daughter," I said, voice ringing with sharp clarity. "You spat on her name, mocked her suffering, and handed her life over to someone who stole everything she owned, including her identity. And now you act shocked." Robert joined me, one hand resting firmly on Emily's shoulder. "She's going home with us," he said. "She's never setting foot in this miserable place again." Emily looked up at him, eyes wide, and I could see the tears she was fighting to hold in. But I could also see something else, something steel-like, something fierce. It was the same thing I had seen in her when she was little and refused to let the boys beat her at chess. I leaned down to whisper, "You okay, baby?" She nodded. "Yeah," she whispered back. "But I want to see how far they'll fall." And I smiled. That's my girl. Jason, meanwhile, had gone limp in the soldier's grip, whining about how it was all a mistake, that he did it out of love, that he didn't mean for it to go this far. "I was only trying to humble her," he said, looking at Emily like she was the villain in his sob story. "She was spoiled. I just wanted her to be tougher, less entitled. You wanted her broken, I interrupted, stepping in front of him. And when you couldn't break her with distance, you tried to break her with lies. No, he cried, twisting in the guard's hold. I loved her. We grew up together. I did everything for her. It was her fault she never respected me. She respected you more than you deserved, I said, staring him down. You weren't looking for love. You were looking for a ladder. And you thought my daughter would be your stepstool. He looked like he wanted to say something else, but before he could, Robert gave the signal. Escort him to the town center. We'll handle charges after the rest of this is dealt with. And with that, the guards dragged him away, his fake reputation collapsing in public just as quickly as it had risen. But we weren't done. Because Vanessa still stood there, shaking, stammering, trying to slip out unnoticed. Emily turned to her, and for the first time since all this began, I saw my daughter stand fully straight. Her voice was calm, precise. You told everyone a man came out of my room, she said. You told them I slept around, that my mother was a maid, that I was trash. Why? Vanessa blinked like she couldn't believe she was being addressed. 3 didn't mean Jason said, you lied. Emily said simply. You lied to destroy me so you could take what was mine. It was never yours. Vanessa snapped, finally finding her venom. He loved me.
Not you.
You were just some porcelain doll. He told me himself. He told you what you needed to hear, Emily said. So you'd help him burn me down. But you know what, Vanessa? Ash doesn't die. It blows back in your face. Vanessa opened her mouth to scream, but before she could utter another word, a group of villagers who had clearly caught on to the shift in power grabbed her arms. You lied to us, one shouted. You made us humiliate a general's daughter, another cried. We're ruined because of you. Vanessa shrieked as they dragged her away, and I didn't feel an ounce of pity. You see, people like her, they think lies are feathers. Light, harmless. But lies carry weight. And when they fall, they don't float. They crash. We let the villagers argue, fight, cry, collapse under the shame of their own gullibility. Robert and I stood with Emily between us, unbothered, steady. What now? Emily whispered. Now, Robert said, we leave. But I wasn't done just yet. As we walked out of that cursed council building and stepped into the square, I paused, pulled out a small notebook, and looked Jason dead in the eye. Your birthday's in 3 days, isn't it? I asked. He blinked, confused.
Yeah.
Why? I smiled. Perfect. We'll give you a surprise party you'll never forget. Because if these people thought this was the end, they were about to learn exactly how far a mother would go to make sure her daughter got justice. The whole village was buzzing like a kicked-up hornet's nest as Jason's birthday approached, and it didn't take long before word spread that the young master and his golden girl Vanessa were planning the grandest party Willow Creek had ever seen. Pigs were slaughtered, chickens boiled, and ribbons tied from trees to poles like they were about to host the president instead of a lying little parasite. I heard someone say it was even livelier than the New Year festival, and I almost choked. The same villagers who had called my daughter trash last week were now gushing over Vanessa like she was some kind of Cinderella reincarnated, while Jason walked around flashing that fake alpha male smile and telling everyone he was about to head back to the city to inherit some high-ranking military position as if Robert and I didn't have that power in the palm of our hands. Vanessa, bless her manipulative little heart, wore a dress I recognized immediately, one I had sent Emily for her 16th birthday. I remembered how Emily twirled in front of the mirror in it, cheeks pink, eyes bright, saying she felt like a princess. Now that same dress was clinging to Vanessa like a stolen crown, and her smug little face was accepting compliments she didn't earn. I didn't say anything.
Not yet.
Robert and I had agreed on the plan. Let them talk. Let them drink. Let them climb as high as they could, so when we pulled the rug, the fall would shatter everything. The night of the party came faster than I expected. The entire village showed up, dressed in their best. There were educated youth laughing like they'd just been handed lottery tickets, clinking glasses with the village elders and chatting about how Vanessa was going to be the next big thing in the city, how lucky Jason was to have 2 women fawning over him. Some even said Emily should be grateful she hadn't been kicked out completely. My daughter and I sat in the back corner like shadows, ignored as usual, which was exactly where I wanted to be. Jason gave a drunken toast, standing under the makeshift banner that read "Happy Birthday, Jason" in crooked, hand-painted letters. To Willow Creek, he shouted, lifting his glass. To the future. The crowd cheered like they were auditioning for a propaganda reel. He smiled, drunk on more than alcohol. I've already made arrangements. When I return to the city, I'll get road work started here. You'll all benefit from my father's influence, just wait and see. More cheers. More delusion. Then he turned toward the youth camp crowd and added, and for those of you worried about city quotas, don't worry. Just come to me. I've got connections. You need a way out, I am your guy. I almost burst out laughing. You're not even your own guy, I muttered under my breath. The best part? Jason still hadn't figured out that the birthday party wasn't for him, that the guests weren't all who they seemed, and that Robert wasn't done just yet. It happened right as Jason finished boasting about how he was going to marry Vanessa and give Emily a pity position back in the Carter household. A booming voice rang through the square. Robert's voice. Stand down. The laughter stopped like someone had hit pause. Everyone turned. Robert stood tall, clean, deadly serious in his uniform, a team of military officers flanking him. The crowd parted in fear, reverence, and confusion as he walked into the center, eyes locked on Jason, whose smile was starting to falter. I came here tonight, Robert began, not to celebrate a liar's birthday, but to correct a mistake. He turned to the village leaders, to the sheriff, to the self-important captain who had dragged Emily's name through the mud, and his voice sharpened like a blade. Jason Miller is not my son. He is not affiliated with the Carter family. He will never return to the city under our name, and anyone who aided in spreading that lie will answer for it. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jason stumbled back a step, mouth open, eyes wide. Wait, Uncle Robert, I don't, Robert said, his voice cutting like glass. You lied to this village. You manipulated our kindness. And you abused my daughter. Vanessa tried to slip away, but Robert's men blocked her path. And you, he said, voice colder than winter. You fed lies to these people, destroyed an innocent girl's reputation, and wore her jewelry like trophies. Vanessa's lips trembled. I didn't know, Jason said. Jason lied, Robert said, but you helped him sell it. Then he looked at the villagers. You believed them because it was easy, because it fed your need for gossip and power and someone to blame. You failed the daughter of the very family that came here to help you. No one spoke. No one dared. Until the captain tried to save face. General Carter, sir, we were misled. You thought slapping a label on a girl was easier than protecting her. I cut in, walking forward with Emily by my side. You called her names. Mocked her. You let a predator lay hands on her. You called me a maid while praising the man who pretended to be my son. So here's what's going to happen. I pulled a folded paper from my code official orders. Jason Miller and Vanessa Blake will be removed from Willow Creek under military escort. All city return quotas connected to them are revoked. Anyone who accepted bribes or favors from Jason will be investigated. And the Carter family has cut all ties with this village. Permanently. Panic exploded. Educated youth gasped. Villagers shouted. The sheriff tried to protest, but Robert raised a hand. Save it, he said. You want leadership? You earn it with integrity, not by trampling a girl into the dirt and calling it discipline. Then I turned to Emily, who stood there like a phoenix finally rising from the ash. You don't owe them your voice, I said softly. But if you want to speak, now is the time. And she did. She stepped forward, eyes clear, voice steady. For a year, I begged to be seen, she said. And for a year, you chose to believe liars. You saw bruises and ignored them. You saw hunger and laughed. You took what belonged to me and gave it away. And now that it's inconvenient, you want to pretend none of it happened. The silence after her words was heavier than any storm. I'm leaving tomorrow, she continued. And I hope I never hear the name Willow Creek again. But I'll carry the lesson with me because, once, I thought people would protect me just because I was good. Now I know better. Good girls get eaten alive if they don't fight back. She turned and walked away, and I swear I could hear every heartbeat stop as she passed. Jason tried to chase after her, reaching out, his voice breaking. Emily, I was wrong, I didn't mean to. She didn't even flinch. You didn't mean to get caught, she said without looking back. But you meant every word you used to destroy me. And then she was gone. And so was my patience for their redemption. Jason and Vanessa were taken into custody that night. And the people who once bowed to them began to spit at their feet. Poetic, really? They threw a party to celebrate a lie and ended up dancing in the ashes of their own shame. But trust me, that wasn't the end.
Not yet.
After the party that ended in disgrace, Willow Creek wasn't just quiet, it was suffocating. No more music, no more drunken laughter, no more shouts of young Master Jason. The morning air carried shame instead of smoke, and even the chickens seemed to walk quieter, like they knew their humans had messed up beyond repair. Emily and I stayed at the edge of the village that night, not because we had to, but because we chose to, because walking through those streets felt like dragging light through shadows. People didn't look us in the eye. Some whispered apologies under their breath. Some tried to avoid us entirely. But we weren't there to forgive. We were there to close the chapter. That morning, as Robert finalized the formal charges against Jason and Vanessa and had them transferred into custody, I took Emily for one last walk around the camp. She looked around with the strangest expression, something between mourning and relief. I don't know whether I should cry or laugh, she said, voice light but cracked. It's like I'm standing where I buried myself for a year. I squeezed her hand. You don't have to feel anything for this place anymore. They chose their side. And now they can sit with it. The fallout from the truth spread fast. News traveled from one village to the next, and by the end of the week, Willow Creek's name was on every military officer's blacklist. It became a cautionary tale whispered through government corridors and dinner tables, alike how a town destroyed itself by protecting liars and discarding a general's daughter. And justice didn't stop with Jason and Vanessa. Once we left, internal investigations were launched into every favor, bribe, and falsified quota that had Jason's name on it. The sheriff was the first to fall, stripped of his position, fined, and publicly humiliated for collusion and negligence. The village captain lost his land contract and had to repay every cent he made under the table. Every educated youth who cozied up to Jason in exchange for favors found their files flagged with misconduct. No one escaped. No one. Meanwhile, Emily's name was quietly restored in official records, not just as my daughter, but as the heiress to the Carter family, a young woman who had survived hell and walked out stronger. And as for Jason and Vanessa, well, karma didn't just tap on their shoulders, it knocked the door down and dragged them by the hair. The prison system wasn't kind to liars and manipulators, especially ones who embarrassed the military. I heard from one of Robert's contacts that Vanessa cried the entire first week in custody, begging for leniency, only to be thrown into solitary when she refused to stop screaming. Jason didn't fare much better as cellmates quickly figured out who he was and what he'd done. His face, once smug and clean, now wore bruises like unpaid debts. I could have pitied them. I could have felt a shred of mercy. But I didn't. Because what they took from Emily wasn't just material, it was dignity.
Safety.
Identity. And that's something you don't get to walk away from unscathed. Emily, on the other hand, was blooming again. Slowly, yes but surely. It started with her shoulders, which had been hunched for months, finally relaxing. Then came her appetite, which returned after weeks of forced hunger. She smiled again, cautiously at first, like she was testing if it was allowed. And then one afternoon, she laughed full and real because the puppy on our base stole Robert's shoe and paraded it like a trophy. That sound? That laugh. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. A few weeks after we settled back home, Robert and I received a letter from one of the new youth program leaders. It was brief, but the message was clear. Jason had escaped prison during a transfer. My fingers clenched the page so tightly I could feel the ink imprinting on my skin. He won't come near us, Robert promised, loading his pistol. He's not that stupid. But I knew better. Jason was prideful. And men like him don't go down without one last pathetic attempt to regain what they lost. And sure enough, just as we were preparing for Emily's official enrollment into the military medical program, something she chose on her own, bless her heart, there was a knock at the front gate. The guards, trained and alert as ever, caught the man lurking around the bushes, and tackled him on sight. At first, they thought he was some beggar or vagrant. His clothes were torn, his body emaciated, and he smelled like a sewer. But when he opened his mouth and said, "I'm here to see Emily Carter. I'm her fiancé," we knew. I walked out to the gate, stared through the bars, and saw the man who had once tried to replace my daughter with a shiny imitation. His eyes, once sharp and manipulative, were now sunken and desperate. "Claire," he croaked, "please. I have nowhere else to go. I've lost everything." "You lost everything the moment you tried to take what wasn't yours," I replied, cool and clear. He dropped to his knees. "I loved her. I was just angry. Everyone said I was just her accessory. I wanted to be someone for once. I just wanted to matter." "You wanted to matter more than the truth," I said. "You wanted power without price, loyalty without giving it, and a future that wasn't yours to take." "Please," he whispered, "let me see her. Just once." "She's getting married tomorrow," I said flatly. "To a man who knows what it means to protect, not control." His face crumbled. It was pitiful, almost theatrical, like he was trying to summon sympathy out of thin air. But I had none to give. The guards waited for my signal. I nodded, and they threw him out literally. I watched his body hit the ground outside the compound gates and didn't blink once. As he limped away, beaten and broken, I whispered under my breath, "You called her dirty. Now look at you." The next day, as Emily tried on her wedding dress's simple white gown with lace sleeves and a tiny gold pendant from her grandmother, I received news that Jason Miller had died that morning. A runaway donkey cart had lost control on a rural road just outside the train station. He'd been struck instantly. No one claimed the body. No one came to the morgue. He left this world just as he'd lived in the end, alone, unloved, and forgotten. When I told Emily, she stared for a moment, then simply said, "That's what he wanted, isn't it? To run from the truth? I guess the truth caught up to him anyway." I nodded. Justice has a way of showing up, even if it takes the long road. We stood there in silence for a moment, letting the finality of it settle over us like a curtain closing. Then she turned, smiled softly, and said, "Mom, zip me up?" I did. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace, not because the past was erased, but because it had finally been buried. But I wasn't done yet. There was one more thing I needed to do. Something that would ensure Emily's future would never again be haunted by shadows from a past she didn't deserve. One final move. One final reckoning. And I already knew exactly where to begin. The morning of Emily's wedding dawned with a kind of quiet I hadn't felt in years, not the silence of fear or loneliness, but the soft stillness that comes just before something good finally happens, like the world itself holding its breath to let joy bloom uninterrupted. She stood in front of the full-length mirror in our dressing room, her white dress catching the early sunlight like frost on glass, delicate lace sleeves hugging her arms, a gold locket hanging gently at her collarbone, the same one her grandmother had left her the year she turned 10. I could still remember her clutching that tiny locket on the night she cried in Willow Creek, whispering, "I just want to go home." And now here she was, finally home, finally safe, finally free. Her eyes caught mine in the mirror and she smiled, a real one, the kind that had weight and history behind it. "Do I look okay?" she asked, voice soft but sure. I moved behind her, carefully adjusting the back of her dress, fingers brushing the tiny row of buttons. "You look like a woman who has walked through fire and still remembered how to dance," I said, kissing the top of her head. She laughed and wiped the corner of her eye. "You always know what to say." I took her hand, held it tight. "Not always. But I've always known what you're worth, even when others tried to convince the world otherwise." We stood in silence for a beat, and then I whispered, "He's gone, Em. For good. No one will ever drag you back into that darkness." She nodded slowly. "I know. And I don't feel sad. I thought I would, but I don't. Not even a little." "That's not cold," I told her. "That's healing." Outside, the courtyard filled with the sound of guests arriving, real guests this time. Not sycophants chasing favors or villagers currying false praise. These were people who stood by us, who believed in Emily not because of her last name, but because of her strength, her grace, her refusal to be broken by betrayal. Robert greeted each of them personally, his military coat replaced by a navy blue suit that somehow made him look both more powerful and more human. He held his head high, but I could tell from the way he kept glancing toward the house that he was waiting for that first glimpse of his little girl in white. And when she finally stepped outside, arm looped through his, there wasn't a single dry eye in the room, including mine. The man waiting for her at the end of the aisle wasn't rich, wasn't powerful, but he was steady. He was kind. He was the kind of man who cleaned mud off her shoes instead of mocking them. The kind who carried an umbrella for her without being asked. He had met her after the fallout, when her name had already been dragged through the dirt, and still, he called her extraordinary. I liked him immediately. The ceremony was quiet, intimate, beautiful. Vows were exchanged beneath a canopy of spring flowers, the kind Emily used to press into notebooks as a child. And when they kissed, I didn't cry because I was sad or sentimental. I cried because I had witnessed a rebirth. My daughter, once stripped of everything, was now a bride glowing with her own light, not borrowed, not stolen, not hidden behind someone else's shadow. At the reception, laughter rang from every corner of the garden. Music played. Toasts were made. And when it came time for me to speak, I took a deep breath and walked to the center, champagne glass in hand. I used to think being a mother meant shielding your child from pain. I began, voice steady even though my heart thumped against my ribs. But I've learned that sometimes being a mother means walking into the fire with her, standing between her and the wolves, and reminding her who she is when the world tries to make her forget. My daughter was lied to.
She was betrayed.
She was humiliated. But she rose anyway. She rose not because someone saved her, but because she remembered she could save herself. Today isn't just a wedding. It's proof that the truth doesn't stay buried forever. That no matter how deep others dig to hide you, your worth will always rise to the surface. So to my daughter, Emily, may you never again question your value. May you never again hand your heart to someone who hasn't earned it. And may this new chapter be written not by survival, but by joy. The crowd clapped. Some wept. Emily reached for me and whispered, "I love you, Mom." I whispered it back 100 times in my mind as the rest of the evening unfolded in soft lights and louder laughs. At one point, I stepped away from the crowd, just for a moment, needing air. I walked to the edge of the garden, looked up at the stars, and thought of how far we'd come from that letter that started it all, the one Jason sent asking me to come down and fix something that was never broken. If I could go back to that version of me, the woman who rode a train for 8 hours carrying guilt and suspicion, I would tell her this: you were never just going to save her body, you were going to save her soul. And in doing so, you'd remember your own power too. Because this story wasn't just about a girl who was wronged. It was about a mother who refused to let the world rewrite her daughter's worth. It was about reclaiming dignity that others tried to erase. And as I stood there, listening to Emily's laughter drift across the garden like music, I realized something else. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't even vengeful. I was proud. I was grateful. And I was finally fully at peace. Not because the world had changed, but because we had changed it together.